Namaste and welcome to the Divas That Care Network. I'm your host, Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, we are in our 15th year and listen to in over 30 countries. I would like to personally thank you for giving me the gift of your time. As always, it is my honor to hold space with you. And our sequence for this time of the season is all about empowerment. It is all about our solar plexus chakra, and it is all about the seat of our power. For those who have may miss the previous couple episodes. And so to that end, we've been discussing not only meditative ways to, tap into your inner power, yoga postures to help you fire up or balance out, because don't forget that chakras can be either the goal with any chakra is to bring it into balance. It can be underwhelmed and it can need a little bit of support. Also, you can have dominant chakras that are overwhelming, right? So the goal of this is to tap into that power center and really kind of your inner truest self, what your mission is, what your goals are in life, the way to get from point A to point B, to not only have the goals but to make them a reality in the world around you, which is kind of the point, right? We only get this one precious existence. So for our nutrition episode, we're going to, talk about what fuels that inner fire. And I've gone over, lots of different things talking about the chakras and foods that support the chakras. And, at its base component, you go by color, right? Which is super literal and super easy to follow, point and click as it gets, right? If the chakra, which our solar plexus chakra, is aligned with the color yellow, then we eat yellow foods. Think bananas, as long as that's okay with the sugar content. Think pineapple, same thing, as long as that's okay with the sugar content. Think lemon juice in the morning. Think lemonade if you want to add a little bit of sweetness to your afternoon. Think yellow peppers. Think yellow tomatoes. Think squash. Think all of those delicious, natural, no ingredient list foods. And I say that, tongue in cheek, because we're going to get into that momentarily. But all of these foods that show up in nature in their purest form and will help to align and support the solar plexus chakra and kind of bring your awareness, right? So when we talk about our chakras, the color association with them is in support of, to bring awareness to be mindful that your consciousness is in alignment with that particular chakra. So for solar plexus chakra, again, we're gonna wear yellow, right? I happen to have a yellow Jeep Wrangler from many, many years ago, that I still have and love. So, it's aligning with those. It's a happy color, right? It's aligning with the color of strength. It's aligning with the color of joy. Yellow is a bright, robust color, and so think of embodying the qualities of that color as you tap into that inner power within yourself. Think bright, think robust, think positive, think the good things, think your core center, think of that inner fire, right? So when we're talking about ways to fuel that inner fire, and we're talking about ways to bring to life, things from our mind, things from our creativity out into the outside world. We want to fuel that. And I believe that protein is key. And I think a lot of people who are active in the nutrition community, in the yoga community, maybe in the weightlifting community, in these wellness fitness industries, protein is a huge part of that. It is a building block for our muscles. It is supportive of our bones. It is supportive of our ability to function at our highest level. Now, there is, the dark side to protein, where it's over consumption. It's out of balance, much like our chakras. If you go too far in any direction and you lose balance, you move away from stasis, which is the goal, right? Is to be balanced, whole, and not too far in any given direction. So to that end, having this idea of keeping in mind the balance between having enough protein and not so much that you start to veer off into the trajectory of kidney problems, because that can be it's a kidney it can prevent or provide, I should say, a little bit of, it can stress the kidneys out, and it can, too much protein or a lack of balance in the diet with protein heavy diets can lead to kidney issues. And so always being mindful of your intake of protein, your hydration levels, right? How you consume your protein, what proteins you choose are all, very, very body specific concerns and criteria. So whenever I make these videos and I put them out into the universe, I hope that they benefit and provide information for people to then take the insight, do their own deep dive based on their own body's needs, requirements, restrictions, etc. So for me personally, I was a vegetarian for many years. I would love to still be a vegetarian. I'm an animal lover, and it brings me a lot of pause every time I eat meat. It makes me feel guilty. I'm not going to lie. I don't have a lot of guilt in my life. That is one big area where I feel away. I feel away. And so because of that, for me, and what I want to kind of deep dive into are the process. So we talked about the foods that are ingredient less, that are whole food, fruits, vegetables. And I will mention, I'm going to start, which came first, the egg, right? And eggs get a bad rap for their cholesterol. And I will say that kind of a little rule of thumb that I like to go for with regard to cholesterol is if it sticks to the plate, it sticks to your insides, right? So eggs get a little sticky, mayo, egg-based products get a little sticky. Even, half and half will stick to the bottom of your coffee mug. Let's say you drink coffee every day. So, kind of having that idea of literal, again, what you see is what you got, what you bring in is what stays, right? But I do believe personally that eggs are a superfood. And, with the trending, joking memes about eggs becoming so expensive recently, it sounds like the world agrees with me. And they are a staple in many diets. And they are a wonderful source of protein. They are not a vegan protein, nor are they a vegetarian protein technically. Although, you can make the argument for them, especially, if you do struggle with foods that are, technically not vegan, but maybe on the borderline of vegetarian, depending on your definition of that and your belief systems. And I honor and respect all. So I do believe that eggs serve a wonderful benefit, again, in moderation and in balance. And I think that they can be a very, very solid, stable building block for protein-rich diet, not a protein-heavy diet, but a protein-rich diet. I think eggs can go a long way for people, and they taste good, and they are so versatile. They can go into so many different dishes. You can eat them. I love breakfast for dinner, right? Who doesn't love breakfast for dinner? And if you haven't done that in a while, I encourage you to have breakfast for dinner, because every once in a while, it's just fun. It's just fun. It's whimsical. So roll with it. And I think that eggs, they even have a yellow yolk. So when so far as talking about our solar plexus chakra and empowerment, empowering ourselves up and empowering our day, eggs are a great way to do that. You can start your day with them, or you can end your day with them because of their versatility. So current expense aside, if you have the impulse to raise your own chickens and the space and the legality to be able to do so safely, then I encourage you to tap into that natural environment and get farm fresh eggs whenever you can. Humanely raised, obviously, whenever you can, if you can support those who support our livestock in the best possible way, being conscious, being authentic and true to yourself so that you minimize any impact that you do have. And that, brings me to the conversation about the meat protein sources. And, meat is a protein. And there are lots of people that eat fish only. There are lots of people that, feel a certain way about red meat. And anytime here's what I can say, how I make this resolution with myself. I won't speak for anyone else or their belief systems about it. I just know that I do struggle with this personally, and I would prefer to be a vegetarian. In my heart, 100% in my heart, I would prefer to be a vegetarian. When I purchase meat, I do so consciously, and I do my best to honor that rule of, the yoga rule of ahimsa, do no harm. It's really hard to rectify that yogic rule with a diet that is based on meat. It's very, very challenging to rationalize that one away. And so the best that I did for a while was I would eat predominantly vegetarian and have meat a couple times a week, a couple times a month if I needed. I felt like my body needed it. That was before the diagnosis of Hashimoto's, at which point I really did commit to that paleo lifestyle. And I do eat meat almost daily now, which again is something that I struggle with, and I try to balance that out with only one meal, which will bring me into my next point of topic. But and to choose the meat that I purchase with as much conscientiousness towards the welfare of the animal prior to that. I believe it was Jason DeSalvo who said it on my podcast, an animal that had a really great life in one bad day. So as much as it pains me to do that, I will say that, purchase local if you can, purchase humane if you can. Free range is the next best thing, right? But again, trying to be conscious, and as a Reiki practitioner, I thank every animal that comes across my plate, and I bless it and I thank it and I apologize to it, and I I practice honoring it in that moment. And that might be, I also have been known to save dragonflies from drowning in the water. So, this is a me thing. I'm not saying that you don't have to, you know, you don't have to thank your steak at the end of the day, but I do think that being mindful of your choices and being conscientious in supporting businesses that it takes extra practice to have humane, free range, and it's, as I stutter, supporting those who take those extra steps to support the animals in my way is the most ethical way that you can consume something that died for your sustenance. I'm going to leave it there. Because like I said, it is a conflict for me, and I will, if I can find a way to support my body, maybe I need to switch to Jason DeSalvo's diet, as he mentioned when he was on my podcast talking about the whole food plant-based diet. Maybe that will be in my future, but as it stands right now, the paleo is supporting my health, pretty well, and so I will make my apologies and say my prayers over my dinner, and thank those that made the ultimate sacrifice for my well-being, and that's how I will honor them. Moving on, before I start to shed a tear, talking about the opposite of the no ingredient to the limited ingredient or full ingredient, and kind of the deep dive that I wanted to go into for this particular episode are protein powders and protein shakes, because my counterbalance to the fact that I do have to, or I shouldn't say have to, but I choose to eat meat on a daily basis, as I've eliminated a lot of carbohydrate options from my existence, is to drink predominantly vegetarian, vegan protein shakes twice a day. So, I'm only having that one meat-filled meal, and everything else is predominantly, and I will say that because I will get to that in a moment, vegetarian. And so what constitutes the perfect protein shake? And I have a theory on that. And that is basically getting as much whole food nutrition into that shaker as you possibly can. And it starts with a really, really high quality protein powder. So there are tons of them to choose from. If you're not vegetarian or vegan, you have the options of whey, you have the options of, rice. If you're not paleo, there's tons of vegetarian and vegan protein powder options. And there's tons of paleo options, whether you're talking about bone broth protein powders, whether you're talking about, vegan seed-based protein powders, which is what I happen to have found my favorite in. There's a couple different brands that I really, really love. One is Four Sigmatic. It's an adaptogen mushroom-based protein powder, and it is vegan, but it's got a whole bunch of other extra goodies in there for your overall wellness. Another one that I've aligned with now, as I'm a big fan of Rise, as I mentioned, I didn't want to overdo it on the adaptogenic mushrooms, is Epic Protein. And they are limited ingredient protein powder. They do suit a paleo diet. I think it's about 6 ingredients. There's a chocolate maca. There is a vanilla lucuma, I believe. And so they're both, again, limited ingredients. So you're trying to be as pure as you can, with the foods that you're grinding up into powder form, right? So there's an element, like I said, of tongue in cheek where it's, I don't want to say it's counterintuitive, but it's definitely going to be something that is mindful, something that you have to be mindful of and conscious of, and make those choices that really support your values at the end of the day. It doesn't have, it's not my values. It's whatever you choose, but hopefully it's supporting your body, your health, your wellness, and your mental and emotional health as well at the same time. So, to that end, what else goes into this magical protein shake that makes it so healthy? I personally love to add a green powder. I found a really great one by Paleo Valley because most green powders, whether it's fruit or vegetables, I generally go with the chocolate protein shake. So if you are like me, fruit powders don't go super great with that. If you do lean towards a fruitier smoothie or you like to add fruits or vegetables into your protein shake, then I definitely suggest more of a vanilla base because it goes with pretty much everything. Chocolate kind of aligns really well with bananas and peanut butter, and I can't have peanut butter anymore. And there's a lot of sugar in that banana. So I typically go chocolate. And then, like I said, I found I believe it's Paleo Valley greens powder. And this particular powder doesn't have cereal grasses, which are in most green powder supplements, and they are your barley grass, your wheatgrass, your alfalfa grass, those types of grasses that have tons of health benefits. And like I said, if you're not following a paleo diet, have at them, but add a green powder, fruits, vegetables, however many servings you can get into that protein shake that doesn't make it taste a little bit funky as you blend it together is just, again, a way to create sustenance in the body. Detoxification, a lot of times they'll be aligned with alkalinity or detoxing when you're talking about all these green powders. Hopefully they may have something like spirulina in them, so you're getting a little bit of those sea plants and all the benefits from them. And then I've talked about them in the past, are super seeds, right? So I have a lovely blend of the big hitters, chia, flax, and hemp. I throw those seeds in there. They get a little bit gritty, so I'll give you a heads up. They don't really break down to a super smooth consistency. And then finally, the coup de gras of the perfect protein shake is the next little asterisk. So this is what makes what is right now a vegan protein shake. This turns it into a not vegan protein shake, and that is a collagen supplement. So we're going to have a brief discussion on collagen, and that brief discussion is going to be very simply collagen is animal based. There's no way around it. Much like when we're talking about, our eye creams, if it doesn't have retinol, it's probably not going to take the lines away, right? Retinol is the big gun, right? So all these beautiful eye creams that claim all these things, you want wrinkles gone? Retinol is your friend, right? Don't wear it in the sun, but it's your friend. When we're talking about collagen for the same purpose or for your bone density or for your, overall wellness and boosting of your bone health, your muscle recovery, that type of thing, the amino acids, all of those things are in traditional collagen. So my favorite is Vital Proteins matcha collagen because it throws a little bit of caffeine in there. I get my matcha, my green tea fix. It gives me a little extra boost. It tastes pretty darn good. It goes pretty well with the chocolate, I will say. And it gives me that collagen that I'm looking for. Now, if you are vegetarian or vegan and you're not going to ruin your vegan protein powder, protein shake with collagen, there are options that are, vegetarian or vegan collagen peptide options, but they are essentially nutrients that are going to support your body's own ability to create and grow these particular acids and these building blocks of your insides, right? To stimulate the growth and the support of your glow and your muscles and your bones and your strength. So just bear in mind that where it says collagen in a vegan or vegetarian form, it's not truly collagen. The collagen supplements can only come, unfortunately, at this point in time from animal protein. So take that for what you will. That will be the ruin to the vegan protein shake. All of that being said, let's talk bases. So now we have our protein for our get up and go, right? Our power center, our movement, our body recovery, our workout routine, the building blocks of a healthy diet, right? We have our greens, so we are cleansing, we are detoxing, we are making sure that we're coupling all of those building blocks with elimination of the things that are no longer serving us from our body. We've added a couple superfoods. We have our seeds in there, and then finally we are going to throw the collagen, maybe as a little extra, not necessarily have to, but you can also go with a nutrient support of those same building blocks within the body. Finally, how are we? We're just gonna hang out with our powder, no liquid? No, we need our liquid. I personally love coconut water for this. So once you blend all this in, it tastes like nothing. It tastes like whatever you're putting into it. And it's lower calorie than, like, let's say our milks. It also makes there's a lot in that protein powder and that protein shake, so it makes it a little bit less aggressive as you start to add, let's say, your plant-based milks, almond milk, coconut milk, you're going to have a very, very thick protein shake. And maybe you like that and have at it, but the calorie content tends to increase a bit. I love coconut water because it's a little bit less in calories. You're getting your all natural hydration, and it's adding that hydrating aspect to the protein shake, and it's it has a really great consistency once it's all blended together, which is a little bit lighter, like I said, than your milk based. And I personally am not a fan of just plain water, because I think it doesn't have any texture to it really to kind of blend all of those things together. So that is my little mantra, if you will, on the perfect protein shake, and how I drink 2 of those a day, and then I, with the collagen out of it, it is vegetarian, and I'm limiting my meat consumption to dinner time. And I hope that limits, is conscientious about how I'm consuming my protein. It also is taking the protein aspect to a vegetarian point, so we're having a little bit of balance in the type of protein that we're putting into the body to keep it again as conscious and as thoughtful as we possibly can within the parameters of our own body's needs, requirements, etc. So I think that anytime you start to think about what you put into your body, anytime you think about what fuels you, remember, food is fuel. At the end of the day, that is what it is. And it is so much more, because cooking brings people together. Food and family go hand in hand. I mean, the kitchen is the gathering space in most homes. Food is huge. We would die without it. But also remember that at the end of the day, it's fuel. So if you ever have the opportunity to make the choice to say, this is what my body needs, not necessarily what tastes the best, or not necessarily, what's the easiest, but I actually have to put a little effort, thought, practice into how and what I consume, remember that you're fueling your body. And I hate to be the one that says you are what you eat, but trite and true, as I've said in the past. So when we're talking about our solar plexus chakra, and when we're talking about empowering ourselves, empowering our lives, our bodies, our minds, protein is a strong base for that. And it is versatile in many ways. There are lots of different options. There are tons of vegetarian options, right? If you aren't paleo, you can touch on your dairy options, right? Dairy is a kinder animal protein, right? You can talk about your legumes, which I can't have, but beans and legumes in general, chickpeas. I miss hummus. I love hummus. Hummus is a wonderful source of protein. Not high protein content, but it's there. And even whole grains, quinoa has high protein content. So, no matter what diet aligns with your metabolism and your body's wants and needs, there is a protein for you, and it is the building block for our existence, and it is within moderation, as always, to protect our kidneys. It's going to fuel your fire, it's going to empower you, and it's going to be something that hopefully you will put thought and practice into as you move through your day. So I would like to thank you, as always, for letting me have this discussion about nutrients that serve you and the perfect protein shake. And I just want to say how much I appreciate every one of you for sharing your space with me and ask that you please feel free to share the same with your loved ones. For more goodness, follow me on all the socials at Above the Ground Podcast and visit my website, airsaboveyoga.com. As always, don't forget to check out my other episodes and my amazing sisters at divasthatcare.com. You can find us on Spotify, Odyssey, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you may feel guided. Again, my name is Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground Podcast, where every day is a good one.